Hey YouTube, and welcome to my Super Wonderland tutorial series. This is part 2 of a multi-part tutorial in which we will learn to create a game just like this one. Say hello to my game, Runny, Jumpy. It is a 2D platformer, but you can use everything you learn in here to do just about anything yourself. Today we will be looking at node graphs and their nodes, but before we dive into that one, last video we made our first prefabs and I gave you an additional challenge to create one extra prefab that uses the orange fireworks VFX. If you managed to find that and create the prefab, good job to you. However, if the VFX component was too intimidating, I will now do it so that you can keep up with the rest of the video. So to do that, we will first grab an empty object. Then we will go to the component tab, and if you remember, VFX is already one of the default components added to an object, so we can just go to advanced editing, add a VFX, and in here we will have all that we need. It already says click to select a VFX asset, and all we need to do is type in orange fireworks. Then we can preview it if we want to and select it. Once this is done, all we need to do is now take the empty object, save as prefab. I will just call this fireworks, and we have our prefab. So with this being done, we can start creating our first logic nodes. For this, we will need to open the Miliastra sandbox. For now, think of the default layout as a simple file browser, just like on your PC. And all we really need to look at is the entity node graph folder, in which you will create about 99% of your node graphs. Inside you can see the uncategorized tab, and we can already use that, or we could make a custom folder, but we'll just use this one. This view over here is everything inside the folder, and we can simply press right click and create a node graph. Let's rename this into open chest. And then by double clicking on it, we can open the node graph. If we right click, a menu appears, which gives us access to all the nodes available to make our prefabs work. And I will briefly explain to you what each of these categories do. And afterwards we will do the chest. First we got the execution nodes. And as the name suggests, they execute something or they do something in your game. They can change configurations of your prefabs, add new components to your prefabs, or even influence your character, like adding experience or teleport him to a new location. And the second category, the event nodes, in my opinion, the most powerful nodes, because they react to anything happening in your game. Pretty much every node graph that we will configure will be started by an event node. For the flow control, we will look at them later, but what they do is they can change what is executed based on the condition that it receives. Query nodes, if you're not familiar with the word query, just replace it with search, and this node category makes probably a lot more sense to you. Query nodes basically let you search for almost anything that exists in your game. The last category is the operation nodes, and they contain everything that is like math related and logic operations. Alright, now that the basic overview for nodes is done, let's do the chest. And as I said earlier, each node graph begins with an event, and for us it is the tab event. There's two things we can do. We can just press over here and scroll until we find the tab, which is this one. Or we could go and just type in tab, and then you will see everything that is related to that tab. Let's select when tab is selected, because that is the event we are reacting to. And then it will appear over here in your working area. And what you see right now is multiple pins, and the first pin indicates what happens next. For example, if I was now to pull it out, it would give me a bunch of suggestions what kind of nodes can come after. So because the tab is selected, we want to do something as a response to that event. For now, let's put in tab again and have the activate disable tab, and it will automatically connect it. So next pin would be the event source entity, and this is the entity where the tab is configured. In our case, it would be the chest, and the event source GUID is the prefab GUID, while the tab ID is the tab that we configured as a component. And the last pin, the selector entity, is who pressed the tab. Let's go to that execution node. Because it says activate disable tab, what we want to do is, once we've opened the chest, you shouldn't be able to open it again, so we have to disable the tab. Otherwise, you will always see the prompt to open the chest, even though it has already been opened. And in that case, we have to specify which component needs to disable a tab. And for us, this would be the chest, so the event source entity. And then we would have to specify which tab component. And we want simply the one we already selected. And then we can specify whether we want to activate it or deactivate it. So activate no. Now what we want to do is when we press the tab, we also want the chest to open up. For this, we're going to learn about presets, which when we look at our chest and go to the info tab, under the model, you will see that there's a preset status. And if we go to that drop down, we can switch between 0 and 1. And if we go to 1, then you see that this chest is now opened. And we will use this preset status in our node graph to make this chest open up. So for now, put it back to 0 and copy this ID because we will need it. Now we can drag this pin out and we will go and type in preset. And now it says set preset status. And again, it asks us what is the target entity, which is for us the event source entity because we want the chest. For the preset status index, which is the one we just copied. And last, the preset status value, 0 for being closed and 1 for open. And with this, now we have when the tab is selected, we disable the tab and then we open the chest. And there's one more final thing that I want to do because we made that little fireworks VFX effect. And I just want to display the effect to indicate to the player, look, you got something. Type in create and we have create prefab. And now there's a bunch of options and we start with the prefab ID because that's the GUID every prefab has. Now if we look at our firework, let's go to the prefab library for that. This one has a prefab ID and we will copy that ID. And now we can paste it in here because that's the prefab we want to create for a location. We will make use of a query node and the query node we are looking for is get entity location and rotation. If you do not know what the node is called, you can approximate it. So for us, it says location. So let's try location and you will see the query node get entity location and rotation. And as you can see, this one does not have one of the big pins, only the small ones, because we are not really executing anything in here. We're just fetching data. So it asks for a target entity and we want the little firework to spawn out of the chest and to surprise the player. For that, we take the event source entity because that's our chest. And now we can connect the location to the location and the rotation to the rotation. We do not need the owner entity over here. You could use that to identify where the spawn prefab belongs to, but we don't really need it as the VFX will disappear immediately anyway. Then we have the override level. We can just set this to no. And then we have a level, so we can just set it to 1. These are both only relevant for combat settings, and we are gonna tackle combat later on. The same with the unit tag, we just don't need it right now. All we need to do is now save this, and we have created our open chest. To recap, we can select the tab, and when it is selected, we disable it, we set the preset status to open the chest, and then we spawn a little surprise firework inside the chest that comes out of the chest, so the player has a little bit of feedback. Let's go to our chest, and in order for our node graph to work, we have to attach it to our prefab, which you will find in the 4th tab of the prefab. And now it says add a node graph, so we can press on that. And then it will show us all of our node graphs. We only have one so far, which is the open chest. Just click on that. Now we only need to save our prefab and then we can test it. To test our stage, there is only one thing we need to do. We have to press on that button on the top left corner. And then over here, you can see there's test play, and we just need to press on that one. And we can ignore the go to render for now, because all it does is render the navigation mesh, which will be needed later when we add enemies. But for now, we can press direct upload and go straight into the stage. Now there's a couple of options. For you, most likely these two are enabled. If you want to go a little bit faster into your test, you can disable them. Here you can just choose your player ID if you want to use the mannequin or mannequin. And in-game saves can't really be used for now unless you are creator level 4. And the same for the ranking. We do not need to worry about these. For now, just start the game and you're getting into your level. So now this is our level. We have our chest over here. We see that there's a tab. We press tab. We open it up and a little firework comes out. But if you notice, it says tab instead of open. So let's change that. Let's go to our prefabs and to the chest. Go back to the tab component. Go advanced editing. And over here it says tab. You can just change it to open. And now it will be reflected over here as well. All right, now that the tab is changed, we can overwrite and save again, so that we do not have to do that again. Next, we can maybe do something more simple and just do the finish line. And for this, we will go back to the sandbox, go to the entity node graph folder into our tab where we created the open chest, go to right click, create new node graph, and then we rename it into finish game. And again, we will start with an event, but this time we do not have a tab set up in our component, but we have the collision trigger. For this, we will just type in collision trigger, and we don't want the execution node, but the event node. And there's two options for us when entering the collision trigger and when exiting the collision trigger, but we are looking at when entering. And we will have some familiar pins again, the entering entity, the GUID of the entering entity, then the trigger entity GUID, and the trigger ID. All we want to do is, technically we walk into the gate and then we finish the game. And the node for that is called settled stage. And that's already it. So we can save that. And let's do the coin before we attach these to the components. And for that, we'll just call it collect coin. There is two things we want to do. We want to walk into it, and then we want to destroy the coin so it no longer exists and we can no longer walk into it. And we want to give the player feedback that he collected the coin. So we will play a short sound effect. Like with the gate, with the entering collision trigger, we will do the same with the coin because we configured a collision trigger component. Again, we just type in collision trigger, and then when entering collision trigger, the first thing we want to do is play a sound effect. So we just type in sound effect. And now there's a bunch of options. But for a single player focused game right now, we'll just use this one. Next thing we want to do is we want to destroy the coin. And for that, we just type in destroy. And we have the destroy entity. And for now, let's just configure it. And what we want to do is we want to destroy the coin. So it is the triggering entity and not the entering entity. And for the player plays 1-shot 2D sound effect, you might think all you have to do is use the entering entity and connect it to the target entity. But in this case, it is actually wrong because the entering entity is the character model the player controls, but the 2D sound effect only plays for the player. So that's a concept you need to kind of get familiar with in Miliastra Wonderland. It is differentiated between a character and the player. Think of the player as you and the character is the character you control. So, and in order to get the player instead of the character, there is a query node. So let's just type in get player. The one we are looking for is get player entity to which the character belongs. So in this case, we want whatever enters, give us the player for that. And then we'll add it to the target. The sound effect we are going to be using is this one. If you want to find sound effect yourself, you would have to add a sound effect player component, then add a sound effect player, and then you could browse through them. Currently, it is not possible to preview them in the node graph, so we'd kind of have to figure out beforehand what kind of sound effect you want. For volume, we will use 100. Think of volume as percentages, and this is just max volume. You can't go any louder, but you can go quieter if you want to. And playback speed is 1 for the regular speed. Otherwise, you could make it faster if you want to, but we just want the regular speed for this sound effect. And with that, the coin is already done and we are good to go. And now all that is to do is connect the node graphs to our prefabs. So for our gate, we go to the node graph tab, add a node graph, add finish game. Don't forget to overwrite and save. Take the coin out, add a node graph, collect the coin and save. And now we can test it. So, and in our scene, we can walk into the coin, collect it, it plays a sound, it destroys the coin. We can open the chest, the tab component disappears, the firework spawns, and if we walk into our gate, the game finishes. Now to summarize, we learned what type of nodes exist. We created a coin that you can collect and place a sound effect. We can finish a game and we can open a chest. And just like last time, I want to give you a small challenge for the next video. Create just one more collectible you can pick up, maybe play a different sound effect. And then for the next video, I will show you how to place things in the scene so that it might look nice, so we can get the foundation done to actually build our first level. With that being said, I hope you liked the introduction to node graphs, and I will see you in the next video.